Sonny followed the instructions sent to his communicator and found the dormitories. To his surprise, he got a whole room to himself. The room had a soft bed, a table, a dresser, and even a private bathroom. The air was crisp and sterile, and a hidden screen created the illusion of a snowy park outside. Several sets of clothes with the Academy emblem were provided for free. Sonny looked around in amazement.
How extravagant!
It wasn't truly luxurious, but for someone who had grown up wandering the outskirts, this felt like a palace. He scratched his head.
Looks like I've made it!
Sonny glanced at his shadow and smirked.
I guess we're moving up in the world, huh?
The shadow didn't react. Perhaps it didn't care about such things.
Right, what would a stupid shadow know?
He changed into new clothes and studied himself in the mirror. Then, remembering something, he summoned the runes. Finally, he had time to examine his new memory, the Puppeteer's Shroud.
Memory, Puppeteer's Shroud. Memory rank, Awakened. Memory type, Armor. Memory description, a worm of doubt once found its way into a righteous king's heart. It devoured him from within and turned him into a puppet. A lifetime later, the puppeteer worm escaped from the dead king's body, leaving behind a cocoon of black silk. The silk was later found among mountains of gnawed bones and fashioned into an armor.
Sonny made a sour face.
That is not that terrifying. Yeah. I'm not creeped out at all.
He recalled the first creature he killed, a larva. If Mountain King had once been a puppeteer worm and had already reached tyrant level, then what would it become next? No, it was better not to think about it. With a sigh, he summoned the Puppeteer's Shroud. Thin black threads wrapped around his body, forming dark gray fabric reinforced with bracers and shoulder guards. The armor was light, muted, and made no sound when he moved. Perfect for lurking in the shadows. Sonny smiled. It would be difficult for any creature below the awakened rank to pierce through it, giving him a huge advantage against dormant monsters.
A worm of doubt. Does it have enhanced protection against mental attacks?
He was sure of it. A powerful trophy, just as expected from the memory of a tyrant. The only issue was that the armor wasn't meant to be worn over a full set of clothes. Satisfied, he dismissed it and left for the cafeteria.
Not bad, not bad.
Dinner turned out to be as extravagant as the dormitory. There was no limit on how much sleepers could eat. Meat, rice, bread, fresh vegetables, sauces, and delicious beverages were all freely available.
Extravagant.
He avoided the coffee but loaded his plate with food. As he took a bite of perfectly seasoned meat, his vision was suddenly full of stars. He had to suppress an exhilarated moan. If only he had been infected a few months earlier, he could have eaten like this every day.
Damn spell. Why didn't you infect me a few months ago?
Satiated, he thought about getting another plate but realized it was time for his appointment with the academy personnel. Regretfully, he left the cafeteria. Soon, he sat across from an administrative worker who smiled warmly and started the interview. Just as Master Jet had warned him, he was offered psychological counseling again. He declined, and the conversation shifted to questions about his aspect. He didn't want to reveal too much, but also knew he had to give some kind of answer. Fortunately, the questions were phrased politely to make sleepers comfortable. Interviewer said,
Would you mind telling me about the type of aspect ability you received? Combat, sorcery, or utility?
He did mind, but he had to be careful.
I'm not sure. I haven't had time to understand it well.
Interviewer said,
That's all right. Are you able to directly deal damage with your ability?
I guess not. Earlier, I wasn't even able to harm a towel.
He shared just enough information to give the impression that his aspect was weak, harmless, and most likely utility-based. After that, he returned to his room, undressed, and fell asleep. He had thought sleeping after the nightmare would feel strange, but instead, it was surprisingly easy. A soft mattress, fresh sheets, and a fluffy pillow, he slept like a baby. The next morning, he washed up in his private bathroom and headed to breakfast, feeling energized. The cafeteria was crowded. He quickly filled his plate, but the only open seat was next to the blind girl from yesterday. Her table was empty. No one wanted to sit with her. Sunny grimaced. It seemed the two of them were destined to be outcasts together. He also felt uneasy sitting next to someone who was practically dead, but he had no choice. Losing his good mood, he gave a cursory nod to the social worker helping her and focused on his food. Before he could finish eating, a sudden commotion broke out.
What's going on?
Looking up, he saw a crowd gathering around a large screen displaying a list of names. The rankings of the new sleepers, from weakest to strongest, were based on their interview results. He quickly found his name near the bottom. The only sleeper ranked lower than him was the blind girl, Cassia. But the excitement in the room wasn't just about the ranking. The sleepers were restless. Sleeper said,
How? How can this be? I'm not seeing things, right? What kind of monster is she?
Castor was ranked second, but right above him, the portrait of a silver-haired girl stood out. To the right of it, two simple lines of text were displayed. Name, Nephis. True name, Changing Star. Sunny sat in the cafeteria, his mind racing. The silver-haired girl, Nephis, had just been revealed to have a true name, just like him. The sleepers around him were stunned. Sunny felt a childish urge to shout,
Me too. I have one too.
but he stayed silent. He noticed Castor, the legacy, staring at the screen. But Castor wasn't looking at Nephis's true name. He was fixated on her actual name. Sunny wondered if they knew each other. Why would a legacy like Castor care about someone like Nephis, who arrived in a police-issued tracksuit? The cafeteria fell silent as sleepers turned to Nephis, who sat quietly in a corner with a cup of coffee. No one dared to approach her at first. Finally, Castor stepped forward, bowing slightly.
Lady Nephis, I am Castor from the Hanlai clan. I see that your trial went well.
Nephis looked up, surprised.
It is what it is.
She replied with a shrug. Castor awkwardly smiled, clearly unsure how to proceed.
I am very glad you returned unharmed.
He added, though his tone betrayed his nervousness. Nephis simply nodded and returned to her coffee. Sunny sighed, intrigued by the mysterious dynamic between Castor and Nephis. But his thoughts were quickly interrupted by his growling stomach. He turned his attention to his breakfast, shoveling food into his mouth with enthusiasm. Later, Sunny entered the wilderness survival classroom. It was spacious and tastefully decorated, but completely empty, except for the instructor, a lively old man with messy gray hair and bushy eyebrows. "Come in, young man," the instructor called, perking up as Sunny entered. The instructor introduced himself as Awakened Julius, or Teacher Julius. Sunny sat down, feeling a bit out of place.
Why did you choose wilderness survival?
Julius asked. Sunny explained that Master Jet had advised him to focus on it. Julius's eyes widened.
Soul Reaper Jet. That murderous savage. Who would have thought she'd value knowledge?
Julius leaned in, sharing juicy details about Jet's fearsome reputation. Sunny listened intently, realizing he might have made the right choice after all. Julius grinned.
In 4 weeks, I will make you immortal. He declared, his excitement palpable.
Sunny's lessons began pleasantly, but within an hour, his head felt ready to explode. The amount of information was overwhelming, and much of it was counterintuitive for someone who had never left the city. Julius, however, was patient and enthusiastic, slowing down whenever Sunny struggled. By the end of the day, Sunny was mentally exhausted. He returned to his room, staring blankly at the wall. Then, remembering his shadow, he turned to it with a grin.
Let's see what you can really do,
He said, ready to explore his newfound abilities. Next, Sunny speaks.
All right, Shadow, show me what you've got.
Sunny sat in his room, experimenting with his shadow. He commanded it to separate from his body, and it obeyed, walking to the other end of the room. Instantly, his perception split into two, one from his body, the other from the shadow. He could see through the shadow's eyes, a strange but exhilarating sensation. He realized the potential of this ability. With his Child of Shadows attribute and shadow control, he could become a perfect spy, gathering information without exposing himself to danger. The idea of striking from the shadows with deadly precision intrigued him, but he wasn't keen on direct confrontation. His aspect lacked combat enhancements, after all. Sunny decided to test the shadow further. He sent it sliding under the door and into the hallway. Through its eyes, he could see both his room and the corridor outside. The shadow moved stealthily, gliding from one patch of darkness to another, completely unnoticed by the sleepers passing by. The shadow reached a corner near the elevators. To the left was the way to the girls' dormitory. Sunny's mind flooded with provocative thoughts, but he quickly dismissed them. With his reputation as a pervert, he couldn't risk being caught doing something unbecoming. He needed to be able to honestly say no if questioned. Back in his room, Sunny sighed with regret, but redirected the shadow to follow a passing sleeper to the elevators. He was determined to use this ability wisely, not for mischief. The shadow hid in the sleeper's shadow, blending in perfectly. Later, Sunny's shadow observed a combat class in the dojo. Instructor Rock was testing the sleeper's strength using a special machine. Most scored between 10 and 14, but those with enhancing aspects reached 15 or 16. Sunny guessed he'd score around 10 or 11. Then, it was Nephis's turn. She delivered a crushing blow with flawless technique, scoring 16. Sunny was slightly disappointed. He expected more from someone with a true name. Castor, however, scored an impressive 21, earning admiring looks from the others. The class moved on to sparring. Nephis volunteered first, facing a muscular sleeper. Within seconds, she defeated him without even changing her stance. One by one, she defeated every sleeper who challenged her, her movements precise and ruthless. Her calm expression never wavered, as if she were made of metal. Sunny watched with growing unease. Nephis was a force to be reckoned with. If she ever became his enemy, the best course of action would be to run. Shadows didn't mix well with sunlight, after all. Finally, Castor stepped into the ring. He bowed to Nephis and said,
Lady Nephis, please excuse me in advance.
Sunny's eyes widened in shock as the two faced off. Next, Sunny speaks.
What is he going to do?